Welcome to the Reel Study with your hosts, Mr. Snitbits.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Black Girl Marvel.
I cried laughing. That was hilarious.
Tyler the Filmmaker.
It's like so much depth. It's like nowadays it's, you got A shot, B shot.
All the movie things.
There's some great wide shots in this.
Janine DeBean.
Each other. They just kind of look like they were having fun and doing their own thing.
Produced by Hyena. And me, the Reel Study movie voice guy.
But this was the first time where I got to see it told in a way where I was like, oh man.
Let's go to the poster wall.
Welcome to the Reel Study. I'm Mr. Snippets, and with me tonight, I've got Black Girl Marvel, Janine DeBean, and we've got a special guest, Chunky Larry from Creature Pod Podcast. And we are doing our special Boxes from Mama episode where the two picks were curated by Boxes from Mama, which is a really wonderful, basically at-home date night movie box company, and they make all sorts of great disc nooks and things, and you're going to hear a little bit from them here in a minute. But before that, we're going to talk about the two films and then talk about social media. So the two films are The Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Cat O' Nine Tails. These are the two first films by Dario Argento, who is the kind of godfather of Giallo horror. And if you don't know, we're going to hear a lot more about that. That's why Larry's here with us, because he is a person that absolutely loves Dario and all of his films. I assume all of his films, but we'll get into that. Before that, we're going to move over to the main wall, and La is going to tell us about social media.
Hello, folks. It's me, Black Girl Marvel. Thanks for joining us today. As always, we ask that you just take yourself on over to those comments, tippity type in there. Make sure you hit that bell. Make sure you subscribe and follow us. If anybody's listening in the podcast worlds, on the Apples and the Googles and the Podcast Republics, etc., please make sure you leave us a little feedback. You give us 1 to 5 stars. I think we're 5-star worthy, but I'm a little bit biased. I think we all are. But at the end of the show, you let us know by giving us a star and just helping us. That's the free way of helping us. If you wanted to donate to the Reel Study, all proceeds go back into what we do. We would obviously love for you to do that as well. But helping us getting pushed up in the algorithm does that. It does help as well. We appreciate that. Follow us on all our social medias. Come join our Discord, because we do have some fun things that happen in there. You can request a movie for us to review, and we do have veto power, but again, we never use it. But
Never once
used it, even on some really crazy films. Never used the veto power, because I think we're so interested in seeing what's going to happen and what everybody else has to say. But come on over, join us, become a real student. Thanks again for tuning in.
All right, so let's hear about our guest. Chunky Larry, you are a person I met on TikTok through all of your crazy horror content and movie-related content. Tell us what you do. I know you have a podcast as well. Tell us about it.
So I am, my bio on TikTok says podcaster, TikToker, gatekeeper, prick. And a lot of people believe that that's, the full extent of what it is that I do. But I've been doing the Creature Features podcast coming up on 10 years. And that's been on various platforms, and I kind of put it to the side for a little while, and then I brought it back at the beginning of this year after I'd worked on the Ghoul Kids table with Arlie Grind and Tragic Rar, as well as the Cool Ghoul. And since I brought it back, I've also now become a host on a horror movie show, and that's called the Creature Features Curations. That is available on Miami Fox Streaming, and that's a subscription-based streaming service where I sit in very much in the vein of Joe Bob Briggs or Elvira, watch a movie, kind of weigh in on it kind of throughout the course of the film. But I it's just, I've been a horror fan since I was 11 years old, and I'm 43. So lots of years to become a snarky prick, and that's kind of where we're at. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, please do go follow Larry on all the platforms. We're Creature Features Podcast, as well as all of his personal platforms. Even on TikTok, whether or not that gets banned, we're still going to see where that goes.
You guys really think that that's going to get banned?
I think that
I don't think it would be.
the government has said it's going to be, so we'll just have to see where that falls down. I don't know. Yeah, I do think it could be. I think it's possible.
I felt like it was a lot of political grandstanding, largely due to the fact that we were in a election year, and that there's so much on that app that is more than just the Chinese are spying on us, and
the recipes alone, like we could just talk about the recipes I've gotten from TikTok.
like if you literally think about it, you can get spied on in so many other ways.
Oh yeah, do you have a phone? Because I have a phone right here.
Yes,
they don't
Facebook,
need the
Instagram,
apps.
those
for
apps
this,
get your information. They sell it to whoever they want. Like,
and they're still working. They're still up. They're still.
I think that it was those companies, right, that did it. I think those companies were like, we're going to push for this because we'll get this competitor out of the market. Yeah. That's what I think happened. But that's just me. So, and that's why I think it will happen, because they are powerful enough to make it happen. So, but that's just me. That's just me. That said, anybody want to weigh in? I don't want to squash the conversation. No? Okay.
Just, cross that bridge when we get to it, kind of situation.
That's how I generally feel about these things. Thank you, Biggie, for being here. We really appreciate it. And yes, Larry is on the show with us. Why don't we go ahead and do our Boxes from Mama video? Ryan from Boxes from Mama made this great little video for us. It explains how Boxes from Mama works. Please do go check out their website. Please do check out everything they do. They're a great small company. We want to support them.
I just ordered one.
Nice. We did too. Ours will be here tomorrow. But I wanted you guys to see it inside the box, and Ryan really breaks it down here for you. So check this out.
Hey guys, it's Ryan from Boxes from Mama. I am so stoked to be able to curate this episode. The whole point of Boxes from Mama is essentially trying to create that video store rental experience, meaning of gathering everything that you would need for a movie night, but then getting those random recommendations from the video store clerk. You know, like the guy that recommended Shopping Mall for the first time and blew your freaking mind. That's kind of what I aim to do. So what I wanted to do is take a moment to show you the products that we offer. Now, the flagship product is going to be the Blind Movie Night box. So the first thing that you're going to get is this really nice box with these really nice handprints that the guy who did these handprints, I've heard, is really, really cool. But so the first thing that you get when you open it up will be a thank you card, because obviously the support and the orders means the absolute world to me. We've got some great stickers because I am a massive fan of stickers. Now, the first thing that you're going to need for any movie night is to make sure that you've got popcorn. If you don't, I got you covered. And don't worry, it's Butter Lovers. That's the only one. But you got to go from that salty and sweet, so we got you covered there. Make sure that we've got some candy for you. But then we want to have some other goodies thrown in there for the mix. One thing is that bag clips can just disappear randomly, and I just gave you a bag of candy that you can't reseal, so you got to make sure you got a bag clip. This is a little zombie boy, and I absolutely love him. And if you are anything like me or neurodivergent at all and have difficulty sitting still, focusing, we've got a fidget. These are the Skelly Boy fidgets, and for December, they all have little Santa hats. These cute little guys. Give you a keychain that is also a fidget as well. This is just a fun little thing just to have. And then one of the more fun additions is this little ghost face duck. I absolutely love him. So then you've got this great little grab bag of all of those items that I 3D print myself. And you're going to get thirsty and you might not want to mess up your coffee table, so I'm going to get you a coaster that I also 3D print myself. And because no horror movie is complete without a little atmosphere, got you some candles. All right, but now we got to get to the meat of it, the film. And for this box, we've got The Offering from 2023. Now, this is a very bleak and dread-filled religious horror, but from a completely different element, and it is an awesome film. And the other thing that we are also known for are our disc nooks. They are these book nooks that are of smaller size to really fit amongst the movie collection. They work great for books too. And right now, they're pretty much all horror icons, though we do have the Grinch available only for the holiday season. Now, these are all 3D printed, finished, and then assembled by me. They're all designed by one insanely talented artist that I have the privilege to work with. And then 4 designs I actually hand paint myself, like the Xenomorph and Ghostface that you see on my wall, even Art the Clown, and Billy, who's the newest addition. Thank you so much to you guys at the Reel Study Podcast for allowing me to do this. Everybody, please, boxesformama.com. That is where you can find all of our products, also on pretty much every social. Thank you guys for the opportunity. Stay spooky.
So yeah, please go check out Boxes from Mama at their website, as well as on TikTok and many other platforms. They are everywhere. Please follow them, support them. And Ryan is very well versed in not just horror film, but film in general. So one of the many great horror creators and movie creators out there. So check him out. That said,
Fucking
we
love
do,
that guy.
right? Love that guy. So we do have some Reel Roundups that we did this week, where the 3 of us did see some films. Janine, what did you see this week?
I am watching films for my other podcast. We are in the middle of our festive film noir series. So we're watching noir films set around Christmas time. And we're closing out the series with this film, Lady on a Train from 1945. So most of the noirs I've been watching over the past few months have been very dark, gritty. So I wanted to talk about this one just because it was a huge surprise. It had a very noir premise, but it actually ended up becoming a really fun romp. So the premise of the film is this woman, she's on a train, she's reading this like crime mystery novel when she looks out her window and she witnesses a murder happening in the building while she's on the train. And then the train goes by, so she doesn't know what's happening. All she has is like the memory of what she saw. So she's trying to tell people what she saw. No one believes her. She's trying to investigate it on her own. The cops won't believe her. So she ends up finding the author whose book she loves reading about mysteries and asks him to help her figure out what happened. So it's kind of this fun romp of her and the author running around. There are lots of kind of hijinks happen. There's lots of like slapstick kind of comedy, trying to figure out who got murdered and why and where and all of the things. And a lot of other figures come in and there's red herrings. And so it was just a really fun movie. Like I was really invested in it because I expected it to be this dark thing. And then it kind of turned into this fun, campy romp, almost something like a Knives Out, where, you know, you're obviously dealing with a murder, but there's lots of fun comedy happening in there. So especially for a film, I'm always surprised by classic films when they kind of feel very modern. So it was a really, really fun watch. So I highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, those kinds of films can sneak up on you because it's almost like they're ahead of their time in the way that they're made.
Yes.
That's very cool. And I love a lot of older films for that. Like you're like, oh, this is where all that cool shit came from.
Yeah, great cast as well. Deanna Durbin, she's great as this leading character. We get a young Ralph Bellamy, one of the Duke brothers. People might know him from, you know, Coming to America and Trading Places. So yeah, a really, really solid film. So check it out for the holidays. It's a Christmas set film.
So perfect for December. Gotta love it. Yes. All right, La, you got to see the new A24 film, Y2K?
Yeah, Y2K.
Oh. Yes. Tell us about Y2K.
It was interesting. Okay, so the premise of this is it's 1999 and it's the last day of 1999. And what happens is like that virus that popped up during Y2K actually gave like appliances and electronics sentience, and they started to fuse with other electronics to kill and or assimilate humans. So it's a
that would have been a different night for me. I'm just saying.
You know, yeah. I'm just saying. So it's like a group of high school kids, you know, like your typical kids, like the little nerdy guy that wants the popular girl that's smart, but like people don't really pay attention to it because she's pretty. The fun sidekick that's, you know, has all the the charisma and charm. And It's like a mix of a lot of genres. I personally didn't quite care for it.
Okay.
The one character that I loved that for me was carrying the film, they killed off. So
Oh no.
I was
That sucks.
like, why am I still here? If you
That's fair.
got rid of the one character that I felt was holding this together.
Okay.
It was written by Kyle Mooney, who was on, I don't know if he's still on SNL, but I know he was on SNL.
Yeah.
And he it's kind of written like a sketch show. To me, it's not written, and this
Like
is
a
his
movie.
directorial debut as well. So
Yeah.
it's not written like a film per se. There were a lot of parts where it was very much it was like SNL-y, Mad TV-ish.
SNL.
Where
Yeah,
I was waiting for like a laugh track, and I was like,
wait, Fred Durst is in it? That
Fred
tells
Durst
me
is
everything
in
I
it.
need to know.
No, but here's the thing though, right? That might have been Fred Durst might have been one of the best parts of the movie.
Okay.
I'm so serious.
That's
Fred
wild.
Durst might be one.
That
He might be one of the best parts of the
is
movie.
the biggest
Okay.
indictment of that movie.
That is an indictment, right?
That is an indictment of the movie. But he might have been the best part of the movie because he plays into the fact that he is Fred Durst, and people
Yeah.
don't really care
Have this
about
image
his
of
music
him
anymore,
and
or his, all this kind of stuff. So he kind of
Is he all bearded up like I saw him
He's
recently?
all bearded up.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
And it's like, I will give here's the thing. I know I'm saying some bad stuff about it, but I will give it some props. It does have like funny moments because it's in 1999. Like, it's really written from the perspective of like a young white kid in 1999.
yeah, because he's a millennial. But
I
when I
understand
saw the trailer, I got low-key gatekeepy because I'm like, are these people like gonna be obnoxiously cosplaying me and my generation?
No, and I feel like a lot
It
of
happens
people
to every
will be-
generation, right?
I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of black people will be a little, I'm not gonna say, because like I watched it and I wasn't like like I wasn't frustrated, but I also was like,
I could see why black people would be frustrated by
I
this
can see
depiction
why
of black millennials.
people would be frustrated by like these, like it was like 3 of them that was like thinking they were rappers. Were like, it was very like Malibu's Most Wanted at times, you know. Kyle Mooney himself is in the film.
Oh yeah,
and he literally is dressed.
Isn't he just like a Rasta, like stoner kind of guy?
Dressed like Jack Black, and I Still Know What You Did
What
Last
you did last summer?
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
He's
I remember
dressed
seeing him in the trailer.
just like him, and he kind of acts like him a little bit too.
It gets weird ratings. So on Letterboxd, it gets a 3, so it's a 6,
Yeah.
and then on IMDb, it gets a 5.2, which is actually that's like horror movie territory, which is not good for especially an A24 film. That's really low.
Yeah, and to me, this was a miss for A24. Not to say that they're always going to have like
they're like 20-25% miss at this point.
Yeah,
I'd say.
like I'm not going to say they're always going to be amazing. I'm not going to say they're always going to be bad, but like this to me was just like, from what I like of them, this was like, I was like, did y'all read it? Was it a different script? or were we just
maybe
trying to like
maybe A24 is getting too big for their britches.
Maybe
they're not so independent anymore. Just
I'm
saying.
still here for the A24 ride. If
Right.
they are, I'm gonna still join in for that ride. But
I
will say it's a film. I think
yeah.
it's a film. I think everybody should just go check it out. Just go check it out for your own.
It was one I was curious.
The premise
for
alone. Yeah.
For the premise alone, because here's the thing: the premise is absolutely ridiculous, and I love that about it because we getting a lot of remakes, retakes, reimaginings, which again,
legacy sequels
still have their place in the ether, but it's nice every
to
now
get
and
some
again to get
original.
something that's a little original, that's a little maybe outside the box thinking. And this film is a 100% that. But I honestly would like to follow Kyle Mooney on his like writer director to see if he
where he goes,
improves, to see where he goes with it a little bit. Maybe because I could see the bones were there. I could see that he has some really great horror moments. Like I think there's going to be a couple of moments in here that I think Janine might really like. Just like some placement, some kills, just how people, it's just because sometimes it feels like like it threw back to like the exaggerating way of people dying. Like,
did it remind you of Bodies
at all?
So it had, that's another horror comedy that I think of.
A little bit, but not as like
Not in a
dynamic.
good way. Okay, not in a
Like
good way.
for me,
'Cause I really
because for me,
I do too.
bodies felt like supernatural in a sense, but it wasn't. It just felt like that because of how
Right.
what they were doing.
The way they broke
This
it
one
down,
felt
right?
very much like with the way they broke it down, but this one felt much like it was in my backyard. Y'all filmed this in my backyard. Like y'all
Interesting.
filmed this
I don't know.
in
See, that
just
I
felt
remember
real,
that night
but
so
faker at the
well in
same
my
time.
life. I have such a distinct memory of that evening. So I'm anxious to see if they can capture even just a smidge of that feeling.
I would love to like hear any of you takes.
I have
Because I was
trepidation, honestly, with films of this ilk, specifically something like Totally Killer, where they're
Mhm.
jumping into the 90s and they're trying to play up that, you know, they're so politically incorrect and everything, but they don't go there. You know, they tinker with going there, but they never actually go there.
Right.
So then it's like, is this an accurate representation or is this just cosplay? You know what I'm saying? Like in the
Yeah,
sense that,
that's where I was seeing this one when I saw the trailer. I felt
like,
that
whoa,
about
jinx.
I don't
millennials.
I don't
I'll say
mind that.
there's moments where it is actual representation, but then there are moments where it's like
Seth Green from Can't
why are
Hardly
you
Wait.
doing that? No, like for real. No, like Seth Green, Can't Hardly Wait, Malibu's Most Wanted, like anything where it's like very overly exaggerated. I was like, because you have kids that never was in that era trying to be kids in that era due to
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to like capture that feeling. And I will say there were moments where they kind of did where I was like, that's stupid. Then there was moments where I was like, why are you I feel slightly offended because like I
Yeah,
feel like you're
that's
trying
Well,
to be like
I think
I
there's
got
an
that from the
element of
trailer,
that.
so I was very like, "Oh, I don't know about this,
Yeah.
but I'm curious."
What was that Jonah Hill skateboarding movie? What was that one called?
oh,
Are you talking about wow. Superbad?
No, not
In the,
super
like-
bad. It was like an indie film.
in the 90s or something. It was like titled like that.
Oh,
Oh,
the,
mid
yeah,
90s.
in the 90s. Yeah,
Mid
that's
90s, I think.
Now
Yeah,
that's a pretty solid representation of the 90s. Like that felt spot on. That was the group of people that I hung out with. You know, the skater kids with their shitty video cameras shooting things on fisheye lenses. And, like it
look at how
felt,
wacky it is.
it felt representative of that period of time. Another one that did it really well was Boyhood. That fucking
That's because it was
really
actually
captured.
filmed in that
Well,
in
that'll
that
do it.
time. That's why it was
That's
filmed over
the
14
cheat.
years. So yeah, that's the way to do it.
But yeah, no, that is always my concern, especially it makes me think of things like It, the Stephen King miniseries that was on in the 90s, how they represented the 50s, and you know, it's like they have those music drops that make you say, "Oh, this is in the 50s," and it's
Right.
like
I was going to mention Dazed and Confused for the same reason. Like it was made in the 90s by somebody who
the
was in
needle
his
drops
20s.
trying to do all
But
the
at
work.
the same time, I don't think there's something necessarily wrong with that. It's more like a viewpoint of this generation and how they see the previous generation.
Because we'll never have experienced that. So
right. So this is the stories they've heard or the things
take
they
advantage
assume.
of us
Right.
not fully knowing what it really
and anybody
was like.
that grew up in that period of time is going to feel a little bit insulted.
Right.
And we're just getting to that age now where our entertainment is going to insult us.
I know.
Yes, that's
I
why
look back though at
I'm
my
not
parents,
gatekeeping at
right?
all. But when
Yeah.
I saw this trailer, I felt low-key gatekeeper. I was like, I don't like these
I hear
kids
you.
who
Like,
don't know
culture is
anything
not
about
your
the
costume.
millennials.
Right.
Being
Because here's the
millennials,
thing,
I
though.
don't like it.
But Kyle Mooney
But Kyle Mooney is a
40.
millennial, so like I'm
Yeah.
like,
He
okay,
is 40. He is 40.
But he's a young
when he wrote
millennial
this
then.
movie. He grew
Or
up. He
mid-
still grew up in the 90s. Like I grew up in the 90s.
I'm 40. I'm the same age as him, and I consider
Oh,
myself
right. So like he still grew up in the 90s.
in the trenches, millennial. So
Right. So like
right in the
my
smack
thing
in the middle.
is, I just felt I feel like if he would have got little help from other cultures or other people from the 90s to kind of like fill in some of those gaps a little bit, I think the film would have changed a little bit. And but here's the thing too, he's the writer. It's from his perspective.
Right.
So
Mhm.
this is how he sees, and that kind of what got me
that
over
time
the
for
film a
him.
little bit. Like that's what he saw. That's how
It makes me want to watch the movie. because now I'm like,
I
I
want you.
want
No,
to
I
see how
want you to
close this
watch
is
the
to my
movie
experience.
because, like, when I was in the theater and I was feeling slightly offended. I I stepped back for a second and was like, if I was a writer, which I am, which I gotta stop saying if, like, as a writer, if I'm creating something I want to create, I can't worry about if everybody else gets it or
Exactly.
maybe to a certain degree, but like I can't harp over that. Like, this is my vision. So when I thought about it like that, and I was like, this is how he saw 1999. This is how he saw his 90s. This is how him and his friends spoke in their 90s. And
Right.
in the 90s, it offended me. So I shouldn't be surprised that it offends me now.
Right.
But so in that way, it is accurate. And when I looked at it like that, I could see it for like the goofy movie that it is. But I will say it tried to have a little heart that I just felt like it didn't establish good enough.
Didn't earn it.
Didn't earn it at all.
I think
Not
that
at
is
all.
a great transition because I feel the same way about the movie that I watched this week. I got to see Beetlejuice because it hit streaming. I decided not to pay for it because I just wanted to wait. And I'll tell you right now, I tried really hard to want to like this movie. I kept trying through the whole thing. And this is the biggest waste of digital print I've ever seen in a
There's
long
just too
time.
much going on. I
There was
mean,
no
I
structure.
had fun with elements,
None.
but there was just
It's too much.
going on.
So look,
Yeah.
you're gonna bring Michael Keaton back. His performance was fine, but he
Yes.
did not look like Beetlejuice really at all to me. And I'm sorry, but like you could put prosthetics on him to cover up his age and then put Beetlejuice on top of that, or do some digitization, smooth it out, man, and make him look like he's still the same dead guy from 40 years ago, because this doesn't work for me. Like the whole time it was like looking at a train wreck going, why did they put him on screen? And none of this is funny. If this movie is for the next generation, I'm not sure where their humor is. It's throwing me off quite a bit.
Yes, and why did they turn Lydia into this like doormat? Like, that's not
Yeah.
who Lydia was. Like,
No.
they completely changed her characterization.
She
I get people change over
could be
time, but
better.
I don't see her growing up to be this person,
No,
this
especially
doormat,
how she
wet
ended
blanket,
in
like
the last
cowering
Right.
person.
No.
Like,
Yeah, no, I agree.
That was like the biggest upset for me. Was the Lydia character was the biggest upset for me. Everything
I
else,
think
kind
for
of was
me,
like,
I don't know.
Beetlejuice, I'll let it go, but she was the biggest upset. And where did the wife come from? We just didn't know. Like, I mean, I know in the first
That
one,
was
he
a
was like,
throwaway
she didn't listen to
character.
me.
She showed up. She was
yeah,
ominous
it
for
was
no
like, I'm gonna
reason
put my
to pee
girlfriend
on
in this
characters.
movie, so
Right.
I need to
Right. So
find
what
the
are we
character
doing?
for my
I was like,
girlfriend.
what are we doing? She was just like a live
I
action
don't know.
corpse bride. I was like, all
I don't
right.
know.
And there was a little too much Jeffrey Jones in there for me.
So, okay. So I really wanted to bring that up. They had an opportunity to make a great joke about that piece of crap, and they did. And I love the animation sketch, and he gets eaten by a shark, and I'm like, cool, leave it right there. And you've done a perfect way of saying, what a piece of shit, screw this guy.
Yes.
But no, you keep him alive, and you keep him alive in such a way that it makes zero, like, build your world rules and then break them, and you're going to piss me off more than anything. I'm sorry, but the people in the underworld talk, or the purgatory,
Yeah.
they don't talk if they have no fucking voice box or lungs. They showed everybody that talks. Bob can't talk because his mouth is sewn shut. The little Houdini in a box guy gurgled because he's stuck underwater, and yet the Jones character can just talk with none of the proper equipment to do so. It made me angry. I was just like, not only are you still keeping this guy in the
spine, though, he still has a piece of his spine.
but he's not, I mean, that doesn't mean that's
how
not,
it
you can't
works,
talk
sweetie.
without a
That's
voice
how
box or
anatomy
lungs.
works.
We
You
talked
need
about
this
it in the
part of your
writer's
body.
room. Having part of your spine and blood gurgle through it makes sounds. It's a voice. That's exactly. To a T, they
The
nailed
Soul
it.
Train was the dumbest, lamest, long-running joke, and it
Well,
was
hey, at
pointless,
least
and it felt
he put black people in a Tim Burton movie.
sure.
That's how we
Great,
So
Tim.
nobody can say anything
I don't know.
now. Nobody can say anything.
I
He put him in
exclaimed
there.
at the end of this film that Tim Burton is not a good filmmaker. I'm sorry. Like, you used to have potential, and then you just fell off this cliff of I'm weird. Yeah, weird for
If I was
weird
Jenna
sake.
Ortega,
Like,
I'd be a little disappointed that he called me his muse.
yeah,
This
no.
is what you got.
This is
all you got from me.
this is why I hate legacy
for
sequels.
me?
There are 2 legacy
That's like a
sequels I
slap
can
in the
think of that are
face.
good, right? I've got Top Gun Maverick, which was stellar
Excellent.
sequel.
I loved that.
And
movie.
then I've got Bill and Ted's Face the Music, which is a fun, in the spirit, totally feels like the other 2 movies sequel. And it's not perfect, but
Right.
I didn't hate it. I didn't walk away hating it. I walked away going, oh, that made me feel the same way as the other ones. This was such a waste, and it made $400 million.
And it's only because of like the elevation, because we have such a nostalgic feel for Beetlejuice. Because
Right.
Beetlejuice itself isn't like a magnificent like film,
It's just
but
fun.
it's like a cult classic. It's
Right.
like interesting for its time, everything. So this is a chunk of history that everybody kind of enjoys.
Yes, and the fact that
So
he's
to
so
have a
impactful for
second
not
one,
even being in the film that long as well.
exactly. So it's like it's a second one, and you lose all the elements from the first one trying to like modernize it up for the kids, that it loses
And
all the magic that the original one had.
they could
So
have taken some of the cartoon element where he was buddies with Lydia and run with that, and I would have fucking loved
yes,
that. I would have just
Yeah,
I
them
would have been
teaming
all
up
over
and
it.
then kind of
yes.
tapping into the cartoon relationship that they had would have
Especially
been
then
a
it's
fun
like,
shift and would have felt organic to, you know, continuing that story from the original film.
Right. I agree.
and like Lydia having supernatural abilities was a throwaway. It didn't really help anything.
But even
It
that
didn't.
whole
All it
like that
really helped was
first
to set
plot
up
with the
Jenna's
boy,
character to be like,
that
I
got
have it
ramped up
too.
real quick, and then we move on to something else.
It's
It was
crazy.
choppy. It was Larry, have you seen Beetlejuice yet?
I refused.
Oh, okay.
Honestly,
That's
I wasn't
on
going to give
principle.
it my money, and I just don't really feel like giving it my time. It just
Good job.
it seemed like a lackluster retread of something that was infinitely better 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just
Well, good
I
way to put it.
I have no fucking interest in it. And so
Very fair. I had fun with elements, but overall it was just not well executed.
I've not been
It
a fan of
wasn't.
Tim Burton since Big Fish.
Yeah, that might be his last good movie.
That's a fair stopping point, I'd say.
That's a Sleepy Hollow was where I started going, what are you doing?
Mhm.
What are you? It wasn't terrible. Like I didn't hate it, but I started to see the slippage at Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, I
That's just me.
like Sweeney Todd's a just dog shit movie. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
There's lots
No,
of people
thank
that
you,
love that
Larry.
movie.
Larry, thank you. Snap, kid. Holy crap. Yes, I
Yeah,
hate
that
Oh,
is
yeah,
what
that's-
she
that's the
does
rule.
when she doesn't like what you say.
right. And that's
She'll
true
take
for
a little
many people
dip.
on the panel. They'll dip and come back. Although maybe that's a bad idea. Yeah, no, I'm with you on
Get Larry
on
out of
that.
here.
I'm with him. You can't kick me off too. I defend Larry's stance.
Actually, you
I
both can
hate
go.
Sweeney Todd. I hate
Diana,
Sweeney
kick them
Todd.
off. Both of
I
them. It's just
hate
me
over
and
here.
Janine tonight. Type of mess is
I
that?
did not hate.
It's fine.
Uh,
It's fine.
Sweeney
I respect everybody's opinion, even when they crazy. I respect everybody's opinion.
love it. I love it.
You get a lot of crazy.
I love
from me, so
Sweeney.
you're good.
I love Sweeney Todd though. I'll die on the Sweeney Todd hill, and I don't attribute my like of Sweeney Todd to Tim Burton. I attribute it to the cast. So
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't like
like,
the cast either.
I don't like the music. The music's the part that bothers me the most.
Helena Bonham Carter is like
It can be good.
I can think of like maybe a handful of movies that I've liked her in, but it's like Fight Club, and then I'm
Yeah.
stretching to find the next
Anything when she's not working with Tim Burton, she's got
Yeah.
to being good at it. That's just
So
so Law might not become okay. She did come back. Okay, so
we're gonna get through
maybe
this, don't worry.
maybe we move on to the real
yeah,
news.
I think
at
we
this
should. I think we should.
Let's
Yes.
move on to the news.
Whew. Today's a doozy. Sorry.
Yes, it- Oh
Was I supposed to tell the news?
no, I'm not sure what's
No.
going on.
We usually have a fun little
There's like an intro that happens. I thought we were. We are.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
we can do
okay.
a little bit of
I-
news. We can do a little bit of news.
No, it's okay. I had a few short news stories, but it was fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Now it's time for the real news.
I know
All right. So we are doing the news. Janine, you got some news stories for us.
Yes. So I'm attributing this probably to the height of Wicked right now, that Dorothy's ruby slippers sold at auction for $28 million, making it the most expensive piece of entertainment memorabilia now. Like, this was a huge thing that never happens if you even compare it to other items from The Wizard of Oz. I think like the lion's full costume, I think that sold maybe for like 7 million, and a lot of other really popular items sold for maybe like 5 figures. So this was a huge sale. They still don't know who
Wait,
bought
did
it.
you say Ruby?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
her ruby
Ruby
slippers.
slippers? Or
Yeah.
okay.
From the movie. Yes.
I would
Um,
say these are the prop from movies. Like that, like they're kind of like the prop.
Yes. So they were actually stolen and recently recovered by police. So they were up for auction and sold for this
What you gonna
huge
do with
amount.
them
So yeah.
shoes?
Yeah, so they don't know if it's
Tap
a
them
private
together 3
seller
times.
or a
Like, what you
museum or
doing?
anything like that. Yeah. So I don't know who's got money to
Like,
drop on some funky old
going out in
shoes,
the town
but
with her shoes on. Like, what you doing?
yes. Yes.
Would you wear the
Well,
blue
I think the
dress?
person who stole
know?
them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like
Things are a little
yeah.
backwards.
If this was a
Yeah.
private buyer, like, oh
Always
God,
has
like,
been. I just don't understand. I just don't
yeah.
get it.
Yes.
Well,
I
what's
mean, I get
crazy
it
is that
because it's
it
like
was
when I buy,
probably
it's
not
like it's the
cash.
same as like buying comics and things like that. I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are
I just
investments.
don't
Well,
get
So
it's
I
it.
mean,
still
if
an
it was
investment, but
bought by a museum who's going to preserve it or something, then
Yeah.
that's cool.
I don't know why a private person would
Like if
just
I'm just
want
at the crib and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go dress as Dorothy for Halloween. I need
Oh,
something
you
that's
would
gonna
never
set this
wear the
outfit off.
slippers. That would lower the
No,
value.
I
No.
got $28 bajillion. No, you can't. You can get them boys fixed up. How you? If you got that much
Well,
money, you can figure out how to wear them shoes.
uh,
I'm just
well,
saying.
so here's the thing: at $28 million, it's probably that somebody borrowed against something to buy them. Like that's likely how that
I
went
don't
down.
agree. It's
There-
it's
People don't run around with
it's
28
rich
million in
people.
cash on a regular basis, is what I'm saying. Like,
How do you? Yes,
not
they
how
do.
Quentin
they don't.
Tarantino bought him just to sniff him.
I'm
I
crying.
mean,
Most of
That's
the money people
hilarious.
have when they talk
not
about value is
surprised
investments.
if he
It's
wanted to
not
get in on that
cash.
Judy Garland foot action from
I ain't
39.
mad at him. That's his love. That's just what he likes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Go
Let me
do
tell you
you.
what Wizard of Oz
Go
is
do you,
about.
Quinn.
Oh
Yes.
God, no.
What did a 16-year-old Judy Garland's foot smell like?
Oh,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds pretty Tarantino.
like
He's just a
sweat,
feet.
like everybody else's feet, right? Yeah, that's what it's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably smell like hopes and wishes.
it smells like rainbows. If we're gonna get really real, it smells like rainbows.
Yes, yes.
That
And
said,
one
any other news stories?
one last news story is that David Ayer is hopeful that James Gunn might release the Ayer cut. He's very excited and hopeful that that could happen. He wants people
Get it
to see it.
together.
So he's been posting a lot on his socials, saying like he has no control over that, but with James Gunn in charge, maybe that'll happen. I don't know if that's anything anybody wants to see. I generally, when I first saw promotion for Suicide Squad, I was excited about it, and then obviously the movie itself was
Mhm.
incredibly disappointing, but there were some potentially good bones there. So I don't know, like, I don't know. Does anybody want to see that 8 years later?
I mean,
Am I
I want to
weird?
see
I
it.
do want to see it.
I want to see it. No,
No, but here's the thing.
no, you're
So
not.
David Ayer is in a different boat than most people because he actually had a cut that was actually longer and completely different than what Warner Brothers gave.
Yes.
Which they
And
cut it
then
up
Warner
bad.
Brothers saw how well the trailers did and had the people who made the trailers cut the movie.
Right.
Hence all
So
of the
there is a
needle
different
drops.
film out there, right? That we
Yes,
could
which is
potentially
why
see.
I may have bought the extended cut on streaming because I thought it would have like better scenes and things, and it
It has a
Right.
few.
didn't really.
There's some added elements there. You get more with the Joker that
That
actually
fleshed out
makes
a little bit
some
more.
more sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not
personally,
perfect,
I'm
but-
of the mind I'm in this for pure entertainment. Okay. I take the comics for what they are. I take all that lore for what they are because the comics have changed a billion times from a billion times. Okay. So like there is no clear cut origin. You only have the current origin for the current issues that you have right now. I personally just love that we're getting all this stuff. I'm gonna still say it's stupid if it's stupid now,
Right.
but
So
I'm
right.
just enjoying the
Sorry.
entertainment aspect of it. I'm just like, think about it. For a long time, we didn't have superhero movies. For a long time, like the thought of somebody flying across the screen was just very like, George
Yeah.
Reeves, like very.
And that's why I am a
look
huge
how.
fan of that ridiculous early era of comic book movies,
Yeah.
like your freaking Daredevils and shit. Like Fantastic Four. I love those movies
I
because
love the
that
Fantastic Four
was
movies.
like, wow, we're actually getting to see these comic books that I was
I
reading
love
on
all
the
this
screen
stuff.
for the
Keep
first
it
time.
going. Bad, good, or whatever. Everybody not gonna be a hit. Everybody's not gonna be a miss. I just want it all. Give
And
me
David
stuff.
Ayer says that he's like, I know it might not be for everybody, but I'm really proud of the cut that I made, and I think fans would want to see what I originally did because what they got was so far from what I originally did.
And as a
I think
director,
it'll
I'm
be
sure he
better than
wants
anything
to see
Snyder
his
put
vision.
together. That's just my opinion because the Snyder cut is
But I'm sure he wants his vision
long
out
and
there. I
boring.
didn't take all this time to create something, edit it, get it to where I feel like it was perfected in my eyes, at least. And then for Warner Brothers to be like, nah, we going this
Nah.
way. And now
Yeah.
now I'm getting the blame for it. And that's not even what I wanted to put out in the first place.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because
Didn't
your name
Warner
does get
Brothers
smacked right on the top.
fucking kibosh a whole Batwoman movie?
They did.
They
It
did.
was
So,
done. It was
like,
That girl.
completed.
That girl.
This is
And they
Warner
just,
Brothers.
yeah.
Their
I
track
know.
record is trash.
Good
It is.
old tax write-off. Yeah.
The last time they made good movies was the Nolan trilogy, and then before that, it was probably like Batman Returns. Like they
That
just
second Suicide Squad movie.
the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn.
Movie.
That is good.
Yeah.
That is very good. But it's one of those rare gems.
Which is why I'm
I-
so hopeful. That's why I was one of the few people that was like, when James Gunn got in charge of the DC, I was like, heck yeah! I was
This new
on that
Superman
boat
movie,
heavy.
yeah, is
Yeah.
going to
I
be.
can't
I don't
wait.
care what people say. I already know it's going to be good. I don't need to see it to know that. He has done nothing but amazing with every film he's produced, and they're all very different. So he knows how to hit
Mhm.
tones and things very well.
Yeah,
And if
I'm
he
here
gives
for
me
it.
back my hopeful Superman,
Yeah, that's what I'm
all
hearing.
about that.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
anyway,
honestly, just by the colors alone, I feel like we are going to get a hopeful Superman.
he's got
'cause
crypto with
tone
him.
Of this one, the
right?
tone of this one, just from the clips. I'm not the clips, but like the pictures and things that I've seen, just looks totally different. And I'm here for it. And I'm just here for new blood playing like classic
Oh.
characters because like Superman, Batman, they're never going away. Spider-Man never going away. Like at this point, Iron Man might not ever go away, but like those are like staples for like
Yeah.
since the dawn of time. These characters have been like on the screen in some type of way. So I just love seeing new people have a take on these characters because it's always different, but it's always the same, and you know if it's done wrong, like
Right, you'll know
immediately.
immediately when it's done wrong. Our producer just said that she saw Man of Steel for the first time yesterday. I'm not trying to get us on a sidetrack because
Okay.
that, Larry, if you don't know, that is a discussion on this podcast that has been ongoing. This one film continues to come up, and this and James Bond. We'll move on. We'll just move on. We have two movies we really want to talk about, and Larry, you weren't the one that picked these films, but you are somebody who reached out immediately upon finding out we were going to review them and said, how do I join you? Which I was really intrigued by. So tell us why you're so into these films.
I think that this is a perfect encapsulation of what Dario Argento inevitably became. This is the first two films that he directed. They're both Giallo, and they are traditional Giallo. And so a lot of people have a misconception when it comes to Giallo. There's a lot of people that believe that Suspiria is a Giallo. A lot of people are wrong. Suspiria is a supernatural film and not a Giallo. It has some of the earmarks of Giallo because it is directed by Dario Argento, but it is by no shape, stretch of the imagination a Giallo. It just isn't. That's not the case. I just want to clear that up right now. So I'm going to give you guys kind of like a Reader's Digest of what a Giallo is. Giallo is a series of films that are inspired by the German Crime films. And they're also inspired by a series of paperback novels that were released in Italy in the 30s and 40s, and they all had yellow spines.
Yeah, and they were like crime thrillers.
Crime thrillers like Agatha Christie, and they were called Giallo because of the yellow spines, and Giallo in Italian is yellow. So there are elements that are archetypical for a Giallo film. The way that you can determine what is a Giallo and what is not a Giallo.
Mhm.
Just because a film is an Italian horror film does not immediately make it a Giallo. I've heard people refer to Demons as a Giallo, which is it is the furthest thing from Giallo. And so Phenomena, another Dario Argento film, is far closer to a Giallo than Suspiria. And it still gets in the existential and the weird and goes all over the place, but it's there are elements, key elements. So mystery, murder mystery, point of views, and one of the things that Argento really kind of pioneered with his take on the Giallo with the Animal trilogy is the unlikely protagonist who's assigned basically to solve these crimes. It's not a police officer, it's not a detective, it's always somebody that's,
a
got
third
nothing
party.
to do with law.
Yeah, and then
it's
ends
some
up being
outside
a little
source.
bit of a team up situation in some
Yeah.
cases.
And
like
in most cases there's kind of this camaraderie and everything, but that is whenever you see that in a Giallo film, that is a direct inspiration from Dario Argento, because
Okay.
before that there were films like Blood and Black Lace, which is a Mario Bava film. Mario Bava is really the one who kind of pioneered the Giallo genre, and it's I feel like after the Animal trilogy, which took place in 70 and 71 with Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Cat of Nine Tails, and Four Flies on Grey Velvet, you get a lot of copiers. And so think of like Black Christmas. Black Christmas is assigned to a lot of people as the first slasher or the proto slasher. Another is Halloween, but there's films like Peeping Tom and Psycho that predated those films that are absolutely slasher films. They just didn't have that moniker at that point. And they didn't have that moniker in the point that Black Christmas and Halloween were released either, but they started that ball rolling. And the copycats are the ones that actually create that title. And so that's what the Animal trilogy is the pushing of the ball down the hill, the snowball down the hill. And it starts with The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, which was Dario Argento's directorial debut. And just, jumping ahead into talking about that, is one of the greatest first films of any director ever fucking made. And that might be a strong fucking statement, but I stand by that statement. Just visually, stylistically, this film transcends. And I'll get into it a little bit more, but it's kind of like his thesis film and his final form to me in terms of Giallo is the film Profondo Rosso, aka Deep Red. So
You even wrote the shirt. I love it.
Yeah.
So we definitely are going to get more into it, absolutely. But I do want to get some takes from the rest of the panel on what they thought of The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, because this is, I think, my first experience with anything Dario Argento. How about you, Janine? Is this your first Argento?
This is my first
or
time
did you-
seeing the film. We actually covered Suspiria on our podcast, I think a few years ago. But this was my first time seeing this film. And yeah, like it felt very much like a visual representation of a pulpy mystery novel. I absolutely loved the visuals, the bright red blood, the set pieces. I like that premise of a character who's not a cop or anything like that, kind of getting thrown into these situations and having to figure out how to solve them, because it gives us like an audience POV perspective, which I think is really fun when movies do something like that. Um, for me, it was kind of funny to, realize one of Tarantino's many inspirations, because Death Proof is my favorite Tarantino film. So to see that he literally stole the whole opening from this film for a scene in Death Proof was an interesting surprise, using that Ennio Morricone song. I believe it's called Unexpected Violence. So that was a fun surprise to see that, that he emulated that in one of my favorite Tarantino films. But yeah, it was I definitely a great debut for his first film, because I don't think I realized this was his first film. A really solid mystery, great characterization, great shots and set pieces, great music. I noticed that in this one, and Cat O' Nine Tails, there were some really interesting sound mixing, like kind of
Mhm.
weird,
Mhm.
like screams and guttural and vocal sounds kind of thrown into things. Like at one point, there sounded like a sound that was like the suction thing that they use in your mouth when you're at the dentist office,
Oh yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like
The little air
under.
suction tube.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting things, and the sound mixing happening as well. So a lot to really love in this film. I found myself thoroughly enjoying myself.
And La, you had stepped away. This is your first Dario Argento experience as well?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Tell us what you
Sure
think of The
was.
Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Um, about this one interesting. Like literally everything that I'll be the Brian of tonight. Literally everything that Janine said. Um, so everything she said, and to add to it, I found this film very interesting. I will say, because both films had these like fish out of water, like people kind of like come in and do something. And I understand, like in Cat O' Nine Tails, like it was like they were newspapermen, but that doesn't mean that you're detectives. So I still feel like
Yeah.
you're like a fish out of water coming
Yeah.
into a world that
You are unfamiliar with,
report
because
the
yeah.
news, because you're doing some
Yeah.
stuff. And so in this one, you got listen, I feel so bad for these American people, because can I just go home?
Yes, right. Take his
I gave my
passport, trap him
statement,
there. Yeah.
please.
Right.
I gave my statement, and we almost died because y'all don't want to give me my passport so we can go home. Like, that's, to me, that's what I got out of this film. This is crazy. Okay, so but I will say it was a very interesting film. It's so interesting to see the leaps and bounds we've come from like editing, and this was just in the 70s. Like,
Mhm.
mind you, it probably still had like 60s technology, cameras and things like that, but
Mhm.
from like then to like now seems like witchcraft. Like what we've accomplished. It's
Well, now we don't even have
Start
to cut anything, right? We actually
Yes,
just
the really
digitize
stark
everything.
cuts that are happening. Yeah.
exactly like, so it
To
just,
invoke these like harsh, invasive
right, it's
recollections he's
like,
having about what he saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
I stand on it. It's witchcraft. I don't care what nobody says. It's witchcraft. And but I found this film very interesting, not only like in the sound design and like set designs, because everything's very wide. I think what I liked about both of these films, and I'll probably talk about it in the other film as well, is these films take their time. These shots are like long, and they like you watch them look around, you watch them survey the area. I will say some of the cuts back and forth are very jarring, but I still think that adds to it. So I wasn't too messed up about it, but I was like, boy, that's a quick 1-2 there. I said, oh, okay. But I enjoyed the sound design. I enjoyed how it informed the scenes. Like, you kind of knew what was going to happen before it happened, but you just didn't know how it was going to happen. Like, you knew something was around that corner, and I like that feel, and I think film has lost that a little bit. Like even in our horror and our thrillers today,
Yeah,
like
they tell you
we're
too much
missing
too
that.
soon. Yeah.
Right. Like, I want to feel like I'm moving around this corner with them, and I feel like with this film, I felt like I was with these. I'm just gonna call them the Americans because I know one's Julia. I can't remember Sam and Julia, I think.
Yeah.
So
He's
I
British.
was with them the entire film. Like this might not be like my style of film, but I appreciate it for like what it put out. The characters, the acting was baby. Like that dramatic thing that people do, the actors did in the 70s, that was amazing. When she was on the floor, like, oh, she was like stretching, she was like, she just dropped. I said, listen.
Yes. And I
That
mean,
was
even
great
the
camera awareness,
overdubbing.
I
Law.
love
That was
it.
really
Yeah,
great
even
camera
the
Yeah.
awareness.
overdubbing plays into the aesthetic as well. It's kind of like watching, Japanese dubs and things.
Exactly.
Like it
No,
plays into
and on
the
top of that
aesthetic
too,
of what the
it
film is.
wasn't too distracting,
Yeah.
which I like that too.
Or
Like
like
I know
spaghetti
I could tell
westerns
that
and
it was
stuff.
dubbing,
Yeah. Mhm.
but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, like can we?
It's not synced up. Like I know, like you
It's
weren't
not
even
synced
thinking
up.
about
Like
that.
it
It's just
didn't. The
literally
story was still
part of the aesthetic
interesting.
of the
Like
film. Yeah.
right.
Were these
So
originally released in Italian?
I think they
So
were.
there are
weren't they?
Italian versions of these films. The way that Italian cinema kind of works is they have an international cast. There's German actors, there's
Yeah.
American
Everyone's speaking
actors,
their
there's
own
Italian
language,
actors,
right?
and they're all speaking their own language
Oh,
And then
on
they
the
just dub
set,
it.
and then they
Wow,
dub it
that's
into
crazy.
In
whatever
English.
language that
Yeah,
it
I
is.
so the
learned
guy
that
that
when
was an
we did a
American.
series on spaghetti westerns. It's like the same thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's
So the guy that played the
crazy. That's very
American,
interesting.
No,
did
he was
he?
Italian.
Okay.
He was.
I
He
was
was
gonna
Italian.
say, like, not that he looked Italian. I was like, this guy's
No,
not.
he didn't look American. Like, babe,
Yeah.
But
nah,
even
nah,
when you
Not that
have
he
he,
didn't.
Americans,
not that there's like an
And his
American look,
girlfriend
because
is
there isn't,
also.
But
but
there kind of is though.
she's
but there is
British.
a little, yeah, kind of.
She's
He's British.
British. The girlfriend's
Oh,
British,
okay.
Julia.
But she's
Yeah.
supposed to be Italian in the film.
Right.
Okay.
Just to
Aren't
clarify
everybody
that.
but him is Italian in the film?
Yes.
Is supposed to be Italian.
Yes.
And
And
even
so
when you have Americans speaking English, they're still overdubbing their dialogue in English, so it kind of
Yes.
all matches up.
So it does
Yeah.
that same
And
thing.
that's smart too. To me, that's very smart on like the production side of it, because like might as well have consistency in the dubbing in my book. But I like that
Right.
it didn't take too much focus away from the film. I noticed it and then I got over it and just continued with the film.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed this film. I probably wouldn't watch it again because it's just not my style of film. But I think it was nice to add to like my repertoire of like, of just film.
Another
like,
classic.
My own, right?
I feel
Right.
that the dubbing, specifically in Argento's work, is kind of done by design. It's supposed to feel
It
a
feels
little
like
off.
that though.
You
Disjointed.
understand what I
It
mean?
does feel like that.
It's supposed to intentionally be disjointed in the sense that it's not supposed to feel like reality. These
Yeah.
his early work, his Giallo's, the Animal trilogy specifically, is a little bit more grounded into reality. But as you venture out, once you get to Profondo Rosso, he's now operating in a lot of dream logic. And so I have a kind of a system that I use. I refer to it as this: BN and AD. So it's before Nicolati and after divorce. So in 75, Dario Argento, he made Profondo Rosso, which to me is the penultimate Giallo film. And it was on the set of Profondo Rosso that he met Daria Nicolati. Daria Nicolati was his muse, and she inspired a lot of his work up until the point that they had gotten divorced. And after they got divorced, his work became a little bit more mean-spirited and a little lethargic. And part of the problem is that he also was trying to transition into American cinema right around that same period of time. So his last really good film, in my personal opinion, is Opera. He's made good films since Opera, but his last really good film, his stretch of films from Bird with the Crystal Plumage to Opera, that's like peak Argento. And then you get into his American films with things like Trauma, and then he, because of the failure of Trauma, he ends up going back to Italy and trying to go back to the well, but he's getting less funding, and so the work suffers. But also because he's not as inspired as he was initially, the work suffers.
Okay.
And so there are films like The Stendhal Syndrome, which I think is a fucking fantastic film that really talks about the othering of women in the female experience and recovering from trauma and all of that stuff. And it's an important film that he made, but it's uncomfortable, and it's really really uncomfortable. And then you've got things like the Phantom of the Opera, the Dracula that he did, which was fucking god awful. His film Giallo, The Card Player, Do You Like Hitchcock, which is kind of like a TV movie. He also
He fell
when-
pretty hard if he started making TV-like movies.
yeah, and so when he transitioned to America, he did 2 films. One was Two Evil Eyes. He did that with George Romero, and the other was Trauma. And Trauma stars his daughter Asia Argento, and then she's pretty much in all of his work since then. He has two different trilogies that are spiritual trilogies, and there's the Animal Trilogy, and then the Three Mothers Trilogy. Three Mothers Trilogy is Suspiria, Inferno, and There Are Tears, which we do not talk about.
You have opinions, it sounds like.
It's fucking god awful. But so it, like I said, it's before Nicolati and after divorce, and in that in between period, he is at his absolute fucking peak. So you've got films like Profondo Rosso, Suspiria, Inferno, Tenebrae, Phenomena, Opera, like excellent fucking movies. Tenebrae
All the ones you
is a
can buy
return to
shirts for
form.
is what it sounds like.
Well, yeah, most of the shit that you buy shirts for, the reason that you can buy a shirt for them is because
it's
they're
good.
fucking excellent.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and so, in my personal opinion, the Animal Trilogy.
Larry dropped. That's weird. All right. Well, I don't know what happened there, but I'm going to go into.
No, I can still hear him.
No,
I can
You
still hear him.
can? Oh, he dropped on my stuff completely. I apologize.
It's okay. In my personal opinion, he's building his world with the Animal Trilogy, and you can see visual cues for latter films in each one of the films. And I'll point out certain things, but I'm not going to jump in a bunch and say everything that he fucking did, later on.
No, yeah, no. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I wasn't interrupting because I didn't mean to do that. This was my first experience with Argento at all, and he had been on my list. These films, I don't think these 2 films, but Suspiria and others are on my list for things to check out. Wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. New director. I wasn't sure how I felt as the movie progressed because I did struggle with the dubbing, but it's something that you kind of let go of and kind of get into. And it was fine after a while. I finally let it go. I did enjoy the cinematography. I really did enjoy the lighting in this film, in both of the films. I really enjoyed those kind of hard lines and that kind of pseudo-noir feel because he's doing mysteries and the thriller aspect. It makes perfect sense to light it that way. And I think it really does work. The bright coloring of everything is great. I think the architecture of all the cities they filmed in is really lends to the feel of this film and both films. I really liked the angles they were able to get, especially being filmed in Europe. You're able to get tighter streets, much smaller streets. You get a lot of that brick. And I think that was really, really great. I feel the opposite of Law about the way those cuts were happening. I actually really enjoyed a lot of those cuts, the sharp face close-ups and the feet. You don't see people like running with their feet like that in cinema these days as often. And I really did enjoy kind of how it made you realize where they were going. It felt like twists and turns literally in the camera happening. And I really, felt like it wasn't just the story doing that, but also the cinematics. I wasn't sure. I never know. You don't know how you're going to feel about a film until the end. And I think the ending of this film does a really good job of wrapping everything up, I felt a very kind of Vertigo, very Hitchcockian type of feeling at the ends. I feel like Argento learned a lot from Hitchcock, because there's elements of kind of those, who's really doing this. I also started weirdly thinking about Scream a lot watching The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, because I'm starting to think, wait, there's and spoilers for a 50-year-old film. There's two killers in a sense. It's a little different than that, but there's two killers, and the gender of the second killer is female, which of course is not a typical thing. And I felt that was kind of great. And then I started going, man, Scream is just a retread. All that was really crazy about Scream was that they killed a main actress right away, somebody so famous in the beginning.
Which was done in Psycho.
Right. So it's like, again, it's putting a few different things together.
But you could say that about anything, everything.
I know.
Everything else.
But this is the fun part.
It's how you interpret it.
Classic.
It's how they do it. It's how they, portray that.
They do it well, and he did. Wes Craven did a good job. I'm
and
not
also,
Scream.
The slasher genre is largely influenced by the Giallos.
That was literally the next thing I was going to say. The way those are cut,
and even how those kills
killed
are
the first girl.
Yeah.
Maybe not the ripping of the clothes as much, but the way they cut and then cut to the spillage of blood. You see that all throughout the 80s. Like, it is a huge part of the slasher genre. And I really appreciated that about it. Go ahead, Larry.
So there's a Mario Bava film called The Bay of Blood, and the kills in that are directly ripped off in Friday the 13th Part 2. Like beat for beat, a lot of the kills in Bay of Blood are done in Friday the 13th Part 2. So the scene where the pitchfork goes through the bed, or the spear, the machete across the face, all of that shit is Bay of Blood, and it's fucking wild. But there's lots of filmmakers who in the 80s didn't have to worry about international markets, so they would steal. And great artists create, brilliant artists steal. That is the fucking
George Lucas.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, I mean, like I was talking about Tarantino, literally taking that opening shot with that same music, him photographing the young girl is literally a scene he put in Death Proof.
Well, even just
brilliant.
You could do that with any of his stuff. He's taken from tons of Japanese animes and Japanese style anime or cinema.
Tarantino's going to inspire somebody to be even greater than him. Like they inspired him to be kind of, on par. I don't want to say he greater, but just say, that's how that works. I love that though.
I just watched Dune. I know I brought up George Lucas. I know this is an Argento, but it's to the point. I watched Dune and realizing that Dune was out in the 60s as books, and then seeing basically that George Lucas took Dune and basically a Hidden Fortress and shoved them together and laced it with Nazism. Boom, we have Star Wars. And, it's
Jedi Geki's Jedi comes from Jedi Geki, which is the period pieces that were filmed in Japan. So like a lot of the Kurosawa shit. And that's what American filmmaker, that's what every filmmaker does. They take inspiration from other artists and they put their own spin on it. And
but then people say, I want something original. And I'm like, you're not going to get that. That's never going to occur.
There's always going to be a layer of inspiration somewhere.
The story,
it's going to be.
The story can be original, but how things play out are sometimes it's like improv. You can have 5 improv games. They're all the same games, but they're just different. They're just labeled differently. So it's like you're going to play something somebody else has played, but you might not have, or make something somebody else has made, or a shot like somebody else made, but it's like, but I did this. I put this little spin on
your
it.
execution might have a little different
and the spin is what we're judging, right? How good is the spin? The last thing about the Crystal Plumage I want to say, and then we are running long tonight, so we're going to want to be able to move on to the other movie. I did not like, I like the fish out of water concept, but I didn't like that it was just some writer who they like shoehorned into being the detective. But here's your password. Now you go detect this shit. I'm like,
work with me to help me figure this out. Which I think they illustrated that much better with the kind of non-detective in the next film that we'll
And as reporters are investigative by nature. That's their job to learn things. So I didn't mind that at all. besides the fact that the lead in Cat o' Nine Tails, for some reason, was like the hunkiest dude in the 70s for some
Oh
reason.
yeah.
But we'll get into that. Anything else anybody wants to mention about this specific film before we rate it and move on? Because we do have another film to cover.
I don't know. I'm just still blown away by just how much we've grown as with the technology of film. I know because like we've watched movies back in like the 20s and 30s and stuff like that, but that's I get that. You know what I'm saying? It's the 20s and 30s, like stuff was probably being like created
Yeah.
again, replay type of thing.
But look what they
And this is
had at
like
disposable, and they
right.
were able to create really
Exactly,
interesting
and they're able to create
dynamics,
very
POV
interesting
shots,
films,
stark
and like that
editing.
from
Yeah.
there to now, like from there to the 70s is like that's crazy. I know people were losing their minds when they were seeing some of the stuff that was coming up, and now from the 70s
They
to
added
now,
color. Like what?
man, like my brain is just like and it shouldn't
Impressed.
be,
Yeah.
but it is.
I think it's crazy because at one point they were like, we're
Not
gonna
a long
add
jump.
But I love you giving
sound.
that
Like, yeah,
appreciation to things like that, that
absolutely.
came
It's not
before.
because it's not a long jump. Like really think about it. It's not a big jump.
Mhm.
For our
Mm.
technology, especially like in film. Don't talk about technology just like in the world with like pagers and phones and cell phones and what I'm saying, I got a phone in my room
She said
now.
pagers. I love it.
Yes, pagers. Always wanted
Yes.
one, never got one. I'm sorry, that's a whole different topic. But I just think it's
You were a
such
little
a
late.
short distance. I mean, I still want one. I'm gonna be in a movie and I'm gonna have a pager and it's gonna be the greatest scene of my life. But this is a jump. I just think it's phenomenal because I love film so much and I love like the leaps and the bounds and things that we've done and like just seeing how our technology has grown to the point where like you can create Toothless and he looks just like Toothless but real at the same time. It's witchcraft and I like that we actually have magic in the world. So I just think that's pretty cool. That's all I want to say.
All right. Any other thoughts?
I think that this is a excellent calling card for a filmmaker for their very first film. From frame fucking one, you get the sense that this guy has something to say visually. And I personally, I love the editing in this film, and I feel like it's done like music. And I feel that Argento was always very attracted to music. And so his pacing and his cadence is all about rhythm. And so
Yeah, like I saw that metronome at their bed. I was like, that's an interesting thing to sleep to. Was a
Mhm.
metronome.
it's about rhythm. And so
Mhm.
the way
It's
that
really
it
interesting.
ebbs and flows is through this stylistic rhythm that kind of permeates the entire film. And there's moments that I genuinely just fucking love, specifically in this animal trilogy. And one of the things that I think is just so beautiful about these films is his sense of humor in these films. And there's just this really kind of dark comedy that exists in his early work. And specifically when he goes to meet the artist and he's looking at the art and then the cat thing, and he's just like, oh no, and he's talking him down in prices, but he's just mortified,
Right?
He's, oh no.
Yeah, no, that was funny.
So
he
and
wasn't offering him
also-
very much for that painting either, by the way. In Lira, that was not a ton of money. At the time.
you also have to think 1970.
Right. It was like $500, maybe $250. It wasn't a lot of dollars.
Yeah, but inflation from 1970, $200 is a lot of fucking money. But the way that he uses the homosexual element in the films as well, I think is also done for that period of time very respectfully. And I think that needs to be said. And there are people who are going to watch
That's
through the
in
lens.
the Cat o' Nine Tails, right?
That's in both.
It's in both. There's
both
an element of it
films,
in
yeah.
both films. But
It's
much
actually
more in Cat o' Nine Tails.
When they like
all
bring
of
up the
his-
suspects, I think that that plays
Yeah.
into
Oh, no,
all that. Yeah.
The fact I thought that was interesting. The fact that they said that, and I know this is not the right word these days. We would say trans, we wouldn't say transvestite, but he says transvestite isn't a pervert. Goes with a different group.
Yeah.
There was something like, wait a minute, you're literally making a divide between literal perverts that we all can't stand and people who are
Right,
trans,
and
and you're doing
Yeah.
this in 1970. Like I
Yes.
respect that.
but a lot of people watching these films with a 2024 lens, not understanding the period of time that these films were released, aren't going to see it that way. They're going to see it as
Yeah, they're
simply
not gonna see.
homophobic or problematic or
You can't judge a film for its
misogynistic.
era. Can't do that.
And
It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
We're
and I
completely
think that,
different.
you
Yeah.
know his work specifically in this period of time is far more progressive than people give it any credit.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I totally agree with that. That's a good point. Let's go ahead and rate the film. We do a rating system here, Larry, where it's 1 to 10. You decide how that scale plays out. You can decide 1s aren't possible or 10s aren't possible, whatever you decide, and it's how you feel. As an example, we'll go to Law. What do you rate the bird with the crystal with the crystal plumage?
The bird with the crystal plumage. I echo everybody's sentiments about it. I would personally, I'll give this like a solid 7. I'll give this a solid 7. I enjoyed it. Again, it's not my style of film because I grew up in the 90s. Like I grew up with like 80s films and to where we are now. So like I missed like the 70s mark to probably get some of that 70s like feel. But I will say it does make me curious about more 70s films. It just made me curious about films from like 70s down because I just haven't seen like a lot of those probably. But yeah, this is a solid 7. I enjoy
Love
this
it.
film.
Solid 7 in the 70s is what Law is saying here.
I know. Exactly.
Janine, what did you rate this film?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love a director being able to come out the gate really establishing his style. I think that's why Edgar Wright is my favorite director because he literally came out the gate establishing a very unique style that is totally key to him. And I definitely feel like Argento was able to do that with this film. So I give it an 8.5 out of 10.
All right.
Nice.
Larry, you want to go next?
yeah, I'm actually gonna kind of mirror Janine's a little bit. I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10. I think that this is an excellent fucking film. I think that this is not my favorite of the Animal trilogy, and we're actually not going to be talking about my favorite of the Animal trilogy, but this fucking movie rules. And in terms of somebody saying in a very clear way, this is this kind of movie that I make, and
Yeah.
having that gumption and that tenacity to with your first film. Now, granted, Dario Argento is a nepo baby in the sense that his father was Salvatore Argento, who was a producer. He started
And produced this film.
He produced this film,
Yep.
but Argento started as a film critic. Then he wrote for films. He co-wrote Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a Leone film.
Yeah.
And, he transitions into this, and people did not want him to do this. And he had a clear idea of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to say. And nobody would have been able to do this other than Dario Argento. And they had wanted, I think, one of the film directors from the Bond films, who I think he would have done a reasonable job, but it just
Wouldn't have the
any
style.
other hand, it would not have had that style. And that style is ultimately what defined an entire genre of films.
Yeah.
So I don't give 10s, or on my show it's 5. I don't just willy-nilly give those out, but this is as close to a 10 as it's going to get for me.
Interesting. Yeah, Law is pretty. This isn't the word I mean, but it's stingy with the 10s. I don't mean that in a negative way.
I know what you
I'm
mean.
very
Yes.
You're selective.
Yeah.
Maybe is a better word.
I'm selective. I don't really
yeah.
give out 10s because I feel like
I am a 10 giver. I give the 10s out. You made me feel things. Here's a 10. That's how I am.
You can still feel things, and you can get an 8. So
if you don't make me feel things and you have a bad ending, you're getting a piss poor score. Beetlejuice. I didn't give my actual. I would have given it like a 3. Like it's bad. Like it's that bad. Anyway, Bird with the Crystal Plumage. I'm going to give a 9 as well. I think this is a solid flick. I think there's a lot to explore here. I will be watching this one again, and I'm going to be going through Argento's filmography just to see what I've missed. I might do what I did with him and make sure I can get him up to at least where I have Hitchcock, which is at 14 films, somewhere in there. So I might try that, because to me, he is in a lot of ways the Italian.
Watch them chronologically. You'll appreciate it. more.
I absolutely will.
Nice. Can I say that I feel like Larry's love for Argento is very similar to Brian's love for Deacons?
Yes,
It's
I would
feeling
say that.
very, it's
Yeah.
feeling
It's
very on par
comparable.
with that.
Yeah,
It's very
that's a
on par with
compliment.
that. It's
Yeah, that's a
And
compliment.
the
no,
knowledge
it's
is great as
yeah,
well.
the
So I
knowledge is
appreciate
crazy.
you.
And
I
so
appreciate
like,
you sharing a lot of this background
You're
with us.
that's why I said that, because it's like you have like this one, I can tell you're very passionate about this dude, which I love. And then two, you just have all the knowledge. He was like, listen, he was born breech on a Sunday, and this
Born
was
That was
this is what
beautiful.
informs his
Born
diverse point of view, because
Oh,
it's,
wow.
but I love it though, because it's like you found
28
something, you
hours
found
of
like
labor.
a director, you feel me? It's like you found a director that you can like latch onto, that you enjoy what they do, and like I love that. So I make fun of things I like, so don't take it any type of way.
Oh, don't
Larry's
worry
the
about
same
it.
way. I thought you and Larry would hit it off. This is good. All right. We are going to move on to the Cat O' Nine Tails, which, if you saw our little snippet, does not refer to a cat of nine tails, the whip, or a cat of any kind, but a series of avenues to solve the murders. So this one does follow the same kind of basic concept of murders occur, because in this case, espionage, and now we have our protagonist, who is a reporter who we're going to follow, along with an ex-reporter who is a blind man with a young daughter who just wants to get involved, which I loved that aspect.
Yes, I love her helping him
loved,
out and giving
that
him
whole
tips
thing.
and info, and
Yeah,
Cookie,
it was great.
and
Now,
they so cute together. Oh my god. Okay.
yes, they
no,
were
it was
great
great. And
together.
I recognized actors from this film versus the first film, which I thought was interesting. And I'll go into that. But why don't we start with, let's see, I started with Janine this last time, or I started with Larry.
No.
Larry, I do want to let you tell us why you like this one as well. So let's go to Larry, and then we'll mix it up and go to Law.
So this one I like a little bit less than The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. But I think that what this one has that Bird doesn't is heart. I think that this is much more industrial espionage and less like Giallo murder mystery, but it's still inherently a Giallo. And it has all of the earmarks of what a Giallo is. And it's a sophomore effort. And a lot of the time when somebody does a sophomore effort, it's never really going to capture the same energy
like
or
a
spark
Shyamalan
as
type thing.
exactly.
Yeah,
Though
all
I
just
would
live up
say
to after the first.
Unbreakable's fucking fantastic, but
But at the time, the people just weren't ready for that, or it
They're like,
wasn't
where's
marketed
the
well.
twist?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But they were all looking at that first film. Yeah.
I think that this film has elements that are really fucking interesting, but it's marred by its runtime. It just feels a little long in the tooth, and like it takes a little bit more steps to get to kind of an underwhelming reveal.
Yeah, I get that. And even the
But
ending is a bit abrupt, I felt.
yeah, but I just the performance of Carl Malden and his relationship with his niece is the heart and soul of this film, and it really, like, if that element wasn't here, I would not like this movie nearly at all. And it's just kind of a wooden, like everybody feels a little more wooden, and it doesn't feel as lived in, and it's almost as if Argento doesn't have as much to say in this film. It feels more like work rather than love. And so I think that there could be an argument that the fact that the turnaround between Bird and Cat is probably got something to do with that. But he also did Four Flies on Grey Velvet, was released the same year as Cat of Nine Tails. And
so it was 71 for both of them?
For both of them. And Four Flies on Grey Velvet, to me, is my favorite of the Animal trilogy. And it's a little bit more bizarre and kind of punk rock than
Interesting.
all three of the films combined. And it has a really kind of like leap of logic ending, and a lot of Argento's work as you go along, logic starts to quickly get thrown out of the window, like as you go along, and that's why I told you watch it chronologically, because chronologically that logic goes away.
Okay.
And by the time you get to Suspiria, you're just it's not about a story, it's about vibes.
Mm.
And so you ever see the film Mandy?
Yeah, we
Right.
reviewed it.
And did you like Mandy?
It's interesting. It's bizarre. It's
I like it.
yes, I liked it, but it's
I
like
haven't seen
yes,
it.
But you're not
You know?
really into it because of the story, right?
Right.
It's about
just
the things that you're
interesting to watch.
feeling, and
Yeah.
you're it's a cinematic experience rather than a story. And that's what Argento's work is dreams, dream logic. He refers to his films as his nightmares, as his dreams, and he never looks at them in a real world mindset. And so that's the charm of the Animal trilogy, is that they're grounded in reality. But I felt like with this one, with Cat of Nine Tails, it felt rushed. It felt a little soulless, and it's like so again, when you talk about sophomore efforts, and that first album, that's your pent up, I've got something I want to fucking say, I got to get something off my chest. And once you've gotten that shit off your chest, then it's building that ball back up inside of your chest to get it out again. And the artistic process as opposed to business, those two things don't coexist. They don't coalesce in a way that makes it conducive for you to have a quality product every single time. And so
George R.R. Martin has still not finished the Game of Thrones book. For
exactly
exactly this
And
reason,
he said
right?
he said he probably won't. He
Right.
literally just came out and said he probably won't. So
Because he doesn't know what to do, because they ruined it for him. Like they went ahead and just decided their own ending.
but
that's the idea. It takes forever for some people to put up
Yeah,
the good effort, right?
and for things that are truly like the thing you're trying to say, you have to have that time. And I think that he just didn't have that time with this. And it might have been the fact that he's making two movies kind of back to back with Cat and Flies. And you could even tack fucking Bird on there, because it's Bird, Cat, Flies. And it's like all three of these stories, all kind of similar themes, but there's going to be some suffrage. And I think that this is the one that suffers because of the ambition of trying to make 3 films in under 2 years.
All right. Ma, what did you think of the Cat O' Nine Tails?
Oh, I love this film. This is great. I prefer this one over
Over the Crystal
I prefer
Plumage?
this one over the Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And not to say that that was a bad film. To me, this one just had more life in it. It had more breath in it. It had more color in it. It had more characters that I latched on. I felt more seated in this one. And I think it was a little over the top and ridiculous. And I enjoy that sometimes about films. Like the whole fight scene between him and the killer was hilarious, and it wasn't supposed to be funny, I don't think, but I was cracking up.
Him like
the
falling off
entire
all
time.
these different like levels of this roof. Like I thought he was
Oh
gonna
my
die
God,
like 10
like-
You
times.
rolled so many times off that roof?
It's like, how far does
I
this
was
roof
just
go
like,
down?
Are you gonna die or are you gonna keep rolling? Because what are we doing? But I just thought that whole fight, like, them being
Literally
in the room
rolling.
and like him like hitting him like his face was messed up, but he hit the dude with his knee and he pushed him into the wall. It was just, the choreography was amazing and crazy, and like like this film gave me energy when I watched it. Crystal Plumage kind of took it away a little bit if I had to like equate them in a certain way, but this was good. I mean, I enjoyed, like, I always love seeing, like, that is so cute.
That was
I
adorable.
just love seeing like women be women in films and it not be a thing like, oh my god, she's stretching, her sexuality. She's showing herself like she's just being a person. Like
I
you
mean,
had this
that
girl
shirt
that
was a little bit like, who's got a shirt like that? Like, oh, I'm ready for
Bro,
sex.
when
No,
she ripped that fucking shirt
that
off,
cracked me up.
It was as
When
gratuitous as
that
you're gonna get, right?
when
A
that
little
happened,
Velcro shirt.
listen,
Like,
when that happened, I yelled out loud in my apartment. I yelled,
ain't nobody
not
got
a
no shirt like
tearaway.
that.
It's like not a tearaway dress.
I was literally
Not
like,
a
me and La could
tearaway.
Wasn't it a
never. Me and
pantsuit?
Could
La could
never.
never. He
Could
would walk
I
one step
need
and
I
shit
need
would be over.
thread because that bad boy is gone. The moment it goes up, it's coming down immediately. What do you mean?
that
But
was the
she
NBA
also
of fucking.
listen, but here's the thing, she looks beautiful. I bypassed it because I felt like in this time of film, things like that occur. It wasn't like that was just a part of film. Now
Well, and it
it's
was
like it has to
Italy
be,
in the 60s, essentially. Like,
yeah. So
you
it's
know.
like it has to be like, our stuff is different now. People want to see like what they do and shirts coming off and buttons coming off. And I'm just like, listen, Velcro it and let's get down
Yeah,
to the
let's
get
just
down
get
at
let's
this
get
point.
right.
And it was just, but I also like the dialogue. I like, I think them two being together might have been the start of just putting characters together for no reason. But I still enjoyed them like, being together. But the cuts between like them, maybe this is why I like it because it's just funny to me. Because the cuts between like the way he was staring at her, the cuts between him staring at her while she's laying down and then her looking at him were some of the creepiest moments in cinema. I was like, this is cut so weird, and it's a sex scene. I can't imagine.
There's a moment he tilts up on her head and then zooms in
Yes.
on her.
He zooms in on her, and
It
then
was
it's like you
weird.
zoom in on like a foot or a leg that probably shouldn't even be on the ground.
They didn't
but
want to like,
still-
but they're showing that they couldn't show them having sex. So this is the best.
Yeah,
they could
okay.
and
do.
even just the
But-
in line of what was it like? Do you know how many people are having
Yeah,
Right.
Earth right
roughly
now?
What a
100
line.
people having sex
So
right now.
I think for me that's what made it like funny, and I enjoyed that to have
Yeah.
like some humor, and I feel like that's where like Dario did have some humor aspects in this one,
A little bit of
and I
campy
never
energy
like
happening there.
I think I LOL'd at the wrong things, but the things that I realized were jokes, I was like, I see how
You
that's
enjoy
funny.
in your way, La.
They-
You enjoy
No,
your way.
thank you, Janine. Thank you. No judgment over here. Thank you, Janine.
No,
No.
never,
We
never.
The
listen,
real
we don't
study
judge.
is about everybody's opinion.
And so, but I think, but here's the thing. But getting back to the actual film, like, because I was, this is all the stuff that like I probably shouldn't have been laughing at, but it was funny to me, and I enjoyed it because it brought more into the film for me. I will say I enjoyed the storyline of this, but I thought it was going another way, because I felt like they took some scientific knowledge, but they just didn't see it all the way through for it to like fully make sense and like latch on to the rest of the plot. I truly felt like because they brought up like genetics and it's a genetics place that like, and they were working on stuff for the military, I was like, okay, are they splicing DNA? Because like they kept getting like a zoom in of this eye, and to me it's like cat eyes. It's like, even though it wasn't a cat eye, but it's like it's called cat o9 tail. So like I thought it was like a military supernatural aspect to this, and when it just being a person with another
Just a
chromosome,
guy.
I was like,
yeah.
okay, I guess I'm still on board with it.
But this is pre-Human Genome Project. Like we weren't
Very
well
true,
into the
but-
DNA world
but-
at this point.
But we also have talked about how these films are very innovative at times, and because in this
Sure.
film there was a big scene with in a queer bar with like men on men action, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
I thought that was
And it
like
was-
one of the better scenes of the
Mhm.
film. So like we can't one way say that like this is innovative and then be like, well, they didn't hit that yet. I still feel like they could have
Well,
still been innovative.
Technology we have wouldn't have inspired the story. It's.
Oh no, of course, but it's
Just
like
make up your
they
own
were
technology,
already
you know?
they were
Right,
already
yeah,
kind of
that's true.
there. Like they were already kind of there, and they just didn't push it far enough. But
You're
also
saying they should have gone
imagination,
Bond style and taken it just one step.
just
Yeah.
one step, just one.
Yeah.
But that's just
Well-
me. That's how my brain works. But I understand that that's not like their brains aren't in that space. Like I'm in a very supernatural sci-fi space like all the time, and I understand they're not there. But I was like, but we're talking about genetics, and you know what I mean?
They
I
wanted
just
to keep
thought
it
like,
grounded in some
they
kind
were
of
like, keep
reality, I
that-
guess. Yeah. Mhm.
and that's fine if they didn't. It's okay. It was the genetics part was just for the genome part of it, and that's fine. But I just felt like they could have taken that. That's an interesting idea that I would love to like play around with and write myself. But I think they could
Explore.
have taken that and like pushed it even a little bit more because, you know, with chromosomes, like adding one and taking one away can do a lot of things. And so to have two of the same, like that was very interesting. I just feel like they was just like, I think this is interesting. And they were like, we're going to keep it here. We're not going to push it even further to like, you know, stretch the story out more. But all in all the actors.
It wouldn't have been a Giallo film had it done that, right?
Those women were acting their butts off.
Well, so
you know, I'm fine with it. I enjoyed this film a lot.
Larry, you were going to say
the XXY is the MacGuffin of the story, and it's the catalyst for the events that take place. And so what they basically did is they figured out that this specific gene is found in people that are prone to violence and murder. And so they tested everybody in the building to see if anybody had that gene. And so that's what the point of the film was, is, you know, this person is trying to hide this.
Yeah.
And it's just like a snowball effect of, well, to cover this up, I have to cover this up by killing this person. I have to
the immediate,
kill
like
this
the camera, like with the photograph of the dude getting pushed. Like,
Oh my gosh.
that
Yes.
that is
That's
exactly
what
like it started to
totally sold me on
That's fun times. When he caught that, I
and
was
that
like, he
fucking
did this.
train scene.
Oh my
like,
the
god.
train scene was
Yes.
insane. He
is
rolled under it.
hilarious.
Yeah, no, that was
Insane.
great.
Listen,
Yeah.
When they show the close up
It's
of his face
hilarious.
kind of smash against the shit.
Yeah.
I
Right.
honestly
Yeah,
thought the
dude.
photographer was in on it. I truly
Me
did
too.
because
Yeah.
the photographer was quick. The
was
How did he
photographer
do
was
that?
quick.
Just,
It's
Yeah,
like
and then
the moment. It's like the moment the hand went, the camera went. Like he just knew he was
Yes.
about to get pushed. So
and then he went
it
to
could
just
be
acting like he
editing.
was there to take pictures of that model.
Right.
yeah, no,
He
but
was
he,
like,
you know,
oh
he's just a
Yeah,
good
so he felt
cameraman.
very
That's all.
sure.
That's
I
all.
really felt like he was in on it, but then when they revealed he wasn't, I was like, well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Janine, what did you think of the Cat o' Nine Tails?
No, I totally agree with Law in the sense that the characters of
I
the
also
art,
think that moment is really funny.
yeah, where he just kind of starts, oh, I'm just taking pictures of this lady over here. I'm
Right.
not doing anything. But no, I totally agree with Law in the fact that the characters really made this a little bit of a better film for me than the first film. I loved that relationship with the blind man and his niece, and
Oh my God.
then the team up. Like, I'm a huge fan of like an unlikely team up of characters, or kind of like a ragtag crew of characters. So when these two are kind of in trying to figure things out using the skills that they have as journalists to kind of figure out these clues, you know, them going grave digging and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was into all of that. Definitely that stark, crazy death, just the push of the train and getting to see as much as we saw. Like, I wasn't expecting that. And then, yeah, even the photographer death and those kind of like crazy POVs with, you know, the door. And then, you know, we see the hands with the gloves kind of like messing with things, and the kill itself, and all of that stuff really hooked me with this film. I really found myself able to focus on other things. I wasn't hugely focused on the science. And generally just aesthetic wise, like I liked that we had a character who could play into this era of Italian fashion. So I liked having this, just seeing all the cute outfits. So for me, that was kind of fun for the vibes.
Cars were nice in this movie as well. Those little
Yes,
roadsters.
yes. This whole era of like fashion and style and cars and architecture and all that kind of stuff is always fun to delve into. So that was really fun to look at. But generally, I think the characters really made this film for me. It had a lot of heart and a lot of care with those characters that I don't feel like I got from the other movie. And I think there was a lot more action, I feel like, as well. So that was really kind of fun to delve into, like that crazy fight scene. Yeah. And yeah, so there was a lot more kind of hyped up things that really got you like, oh my gosh, where's this going to go? What's going to happen? So I found myself getting far more invested in what was happening action wise and story wise and mystery wise with this film than the other film. And definitely just loved the relationship between the blind man and his niece. It was very sweet. And then him kind of forming this team up friendship with the other journalist as well. I think that worked a lot better than just kind of this American guy who got thrown into the mix of the mystery.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the ending all just kind of happened really quickly, so that kind of was a little bit disappointing. That, you know, it was building and building and building, and then it just kind of like ends.
Yeah.
But
So
and then
I like that point though, because it feels like the bird builds to a solid ending, while this one is a
Yeah, and it
fun
wraps up
journey
nicely.
to just a quick
Yeah,
ending. So I
yeah,
think that there's kind of a difference in that way.
yeah, and
You were
it
going to
just
say something else.
yeah, no, it was just very stark. Like we build up to this thing, we find out who it is, and yeah, not incredibly exciting on the reveal of who it is, and then the elevator drop, and that's really intense, and then the end credits, like, oh, okay. Um, but yeah, overall, there was a lot more for me to kind of really get excited about, I think, in this film. So I found myself enjoying it just a little bit more.
So that's a weird segue because I was going to ask the question: who has glasses of milk after sex? I don't.
I know that's what he's offering. Oh, I have some milk.
That's all.
And
That's
it's
all
been
he has,
sitting on the
though.
table, and it's been leaking.
I mean, I
And
guess
I
he put
remember
some
those
water, but that's all he
those
had, though.
weird triangle things. We had those in the military with milk in them, so I've
Those
seen those
cartons, yeah.
before, which was really weird. But anyway, but I digress. I want to echo everything you guys have said. I do like the relationships. I felt like I said in the first film, I think the reporter made much more sense as this kind of fish out of water being pulled into the investigation, and it was more like, hey, they might not do anything with this. Why don't we? And I kind of liked that they just kind of took the reins and did it. In the other one, it was forced, and I didn't like the way it was forced. Like I was talking about, I think the lead in this film, the guy that plays the main reporter, Giordani, Carlo, he looks like Robert Redford and Charlton Heston in one.
That's James Franciscus. He's also in a really good film called The Last Shark. It's a fucking wild Jaws ripoff, also Italian.
Okay, Italian Jaws ripoff. I might have to watch that. But no, like he's got that rugged, like very leading man, handsome thing going on.
And he got that
really likable,
skin, that
right?
leathery skin that they loved back then.
And the striking blue eyes, right? So like, he stands out. And I think he did a great job. I think he really kind of draws us through the film. And I think the relationship with him and the girl is pointless, but I think that they have charisma. And I think that she's beautiful as well. So like it's a lot of pretty people on screen in this film.
I enjoyed the whole thing because think about it, like there are pretty people, but nobody in that film is as pretty as those two, right? So they naturally have to be attracted to each other.
They had to be attracted to each other.
Yes, because they're the hottest ones in the movie. But even interesting to have him confront her and kind of find her guilty.
Sure.
That was interesting, especially since he was wrong.
You thought you slept with the killer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you thought like,
and then she kind of just is annoyed enough to kind of play into it and just throw it back in his face.
And
then it's revealed that
But this is I love it though, because it would be you'd start to suspect everyone, and especially since she just got hurt. And who's the person that gives her the alibi? It's her dad, like
who's got a weird sexual obsession with her?
Like, that whole thing was dark.
Because she's adopted. And then it's a blind man who's telling you, like, I stabbed the person, so you don't really know what.
You don't know where, you don't know how. Right.
Almost
even for a moment.
My heart dropped.
We
but go ahead, Sneak. My bad.
We did. No, like you're saying, there was a moment where he thought the blind guy might have been the killer, and I'm like, wait a minute, don't do that to me. No, he's a good guy.
That graveyard scene is amazing.
It really is.
That's a great scene. That's a great
But
scene.
I want to defend the fight scene at the end for two reasons. One, I still think action sequences are difficult, no matter when, even now, right? So
Where
are
you defending it from?
I think because you thought it was more comical.
It was ridiculous and funny. I actually didn't. I found it very suspenseful rather than funny.
Oh, okay. I don't think that's a defense, though. I just think that's
I just meant
hilarious. Go ahead.
How about I'm going to put another take on the fight.
Okay, there you go. I like that. I'm like, I'm not against it. Don't defend that.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah, in that way. Kind of like this. Yeah, the stingy remark wasn't meant to be negative.
No, so it wasn't. I didn't take it as such. You're good.
I like the 2x4 to the face. Really caught me off guard. I didn't expect it. And he had a nice cut, like it looked like continuity was big on Argento's mind. And so like where he got hit, where he got cut. Of course the blood is red, but there's an element of that's important. Like there's something about it being super fake that helps, that adds to this. I don't know why. Probably because of the time period. At the time, it was probably like, holy shit, they hadn't even seen The Exorcist by the time this movie had come out. So like we hadn't gone down the guttural road as deep as we were about to. I thought the moment where the guy fell down the elevator shaft I was yelling. I was like, "Oh, dude, no! Don't grab the cables! Don't
I
do that!"
know, like the
but he had-
close up of his hands, like
yeah, I was.
I
Just,
love
it
that.
hurt. I could feel it.
yes.
All of the fight stuff I
The way
felt,
he
and at
died,
one
the
point,
trauma.
I remember yelling, "Why are you having trouble with this guy? He's a scientist. Why aren't you kicking his ass?" And then I was like, "Well, wait a minute, you're a reporter." But reporter feels like a scrappier like
But
job.
not
You know,
really if you're not
But
a
but you're
he,
gonna go
he
out and
wasn't just a
I don't know.
scientist, he was a scientist with a fucking
With the
stomach
anger.
wound.
And he was hurt, right? And he
He
was
was
hurt. So like,
stabbed in
He
the
has
gut.
anger.
But he also listen. I'm on the side of the gorgeous man with the leather skin. Okay, that man he is a serial killer. He's probably fought more people than the newspaper dude has
That's
in
a
quite
fair
some time, and he was
And he's
fighting
got that
people that were
murder
bigger
gene.
than him.
He's got
You
the
feel
murder
me? He's got
gene,
murder
yeah.
juice. He got that murder gene. He got that murder juice on him. On top of
Yeah.
that, too, I just feel like he a news reporter. His job is to get in and out without anybody seeing him. So like he ain't getting in no fights. He not getting no fights. He got
I
hit
don't know. I just
once
feel like
and
you'd be in a
was
scrappy
stunned for quite
situation
some
more
time.
often, but that's I don't know.
No,
It's
I
just
feel
me.
you.
I did tell he couldn't fight when he wasn't kneeing the guy right in the face. He just like it was the worst knee in the history of cinema.
It was the worst knee to the face ever, and it made me cackle. And then when
Yeah.
he took him and threw his head into the wall like 2 times, I'm like, wrap this fight up. Somebody wrap this fight up.
Right.
All it.
It's
all
hilarious. Yes. I loved it. So much personality in this film. Just loved it. I enjoyed it.
I agree. Yeah, no, it is solid. We probably should
Okay.
wrap up. We are
No, can I
well
just
over
talk
the
about Lori
clock
real
hour.
quick? Can I talk about Lori real quick? I was going to
About
riot.
Lori?
Is that her name? The
The daughter
niece?
lady?
Is that her name?
Oh, the niece, the little
Lori?
girl.
Yeah.
A little girl?
Yeah, the niece.
Yes, is Lori.
Lori.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, it
100%.
is Lori. Okay, I was right. Y'all got me thinking I was wrong. Oh, jeez.
You're usually
Okay,
right
no,
about those.
but Lori, I was going to riot if something happened
Oh
to
yeah,
her.
he was
She's
coming
the
at her with that
sweetest little
knife. I was
darlingest
like,
thing.
no. Yeah.
And she was balk. She got breathing hard. I'm gonna say this and I'll be done. I kind of disagree with y'all on the ending. I thoroughly enjoyed the ending because when he put my man through the skylight, which I think he deserved that kill. That's just me. He deserved that kill through the skylight. But seeing him die, and then the only thing you hear is her yell "cookie" and it ends. I loved it because you don't know what's going to happen. Are the cops going to be like, "It's okay, y'all can go home," or are the cops going to be like, "You killed this person. We told you to stop. You didn't stop." You don't know. It gives Inception that you just got to figure out your own ending, and I think that was great.
I'm gonna add to that actually, based upon what Larry has told us about this inevitable shift with Argento to an element of mind games or dreams, if you will. How do we know she's not dead? And that was her spirit saying.
Because
she's alive.
Because
but we
he's
don't
alive.
know that.
He saved her.
No,
Yes, we do.
she's
But
alive.
He stopped the guy from
Yeah.
going to stab her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the news reporter saved her by getting stabbed himself.
But we don't see her
And
after that. So how do we know? How do we know?
Because we know, Snitty, you're trying, but you're not succeeding. She's
I'm-
alive.
I have to
I'm
watch the
pretty.
movie again.
I felt that she was alive. I don't think they gave us
She's
too much
alive, sir.
to dispute that she was alive.
But I do like that idea, though. If we did not see her, or we felt like, if we didn't see her,
Choose
we
your
would
own
have believed
adventure.
him when he was like, "I killed her," right? And then to hear her voice, you don't know whether or not he was telling the truth or not. But also, this never has been set up like a supernatural film, so I would have never.
No, I
thought
know,
that she
but I was leaning
I'm
into
just
what I
saying,
was
though.
being told. I don't know.
I know. I'm just saying though, like I would just never, because nothing was supernatural really in the film. My brain would have never like went there. That's all I'm saying. Yeah,
That's fair. We do headcanon here sometimes, Larry. Yeah, we fill in the gap when it's necessary. Not that this was necessary. All right, will you go ahead and rate this and wrap it up? Because we do have some Christmas episodes coming up. So next week we will be doing Horror Christmas. So we'll be doing, which is really interesting that Larry brought this up, but we'll be doing Black Christmas, the original 1974 release. And then we'll also be doing Krampus 2015. So quite a bit of Christmas horror. And then the week after that is all, right? We're going to do all just Christmas. It'll be almost Christmas and then this Christmas in that order, I think. Yes. And then we'll take
the
our
actual Black
holiday
Christmas.
right? The actual Black Christmas. Exactly. That said,
hilarious.
let's rate this film. Larry, what do you rate Cat O' Nine Tails?
So the one point that I just want to toss out there is Gigi the loser is my absolute favorite part of this entire fucking movie. He's the lockpick guy who
Oh yeah.
he's just like, yeah, breaking and entering 3.5 years. And when you're introduced to him, he's doing a basically
shit
like a
talk
rap
competition
battle.
or something.
Yeah.
Right?
They're having
what
a
is
competition of who can talk the most shit. And it's like
They
that's
just
such
cut
a
to that
weird
scene. I was like, what is
aside.
happening? Yeah,
And it is
I was
only
into it.
it's done solely to set up a red herring with the father being sexually
Into his
attracted to
daughter.
his adopted daughter, which
Right.
it's just like, and then that goes nowhere. But I feel like a lot of this is setups that kind of lead nowhere just for the sake of red herrings. And so that's kind of my problem with the film is that it feels like it's just red herrings for the sake of red herrings, and that not a lot of it makes sense. And I feel that Plumage makes more sense than Tails, and in the sense that they're trying to really, because ultimately what a Giallo is it's a puzzle that you have to solve. And so a lot of the times when you're telling these stories, people will do the thing where they just toss things out to get you off the track. And I would much rather you be like coherent with what you're doing. So when you trick me, you did a good job, because that's the point. And so if you ever like listen to like a Giallo purist, they say no tricks, like, because the point is to be able to go back and watch the film after the fact and say, oh, there it is.
There's clue number one, there's clue number two.
Yeah, and for it to make sense. And I think that, in this one, it's just like throwing off the track for the sake of throwing off the track. So looking at it as a Giallo, I come in with a 7 out of 10. I still really enjoy it, but it's not my favorite.
Well, we call that a solid 7, so it still makes the mark. Anything a 7 or over typically is rewatchable or at least enjoyable on that level. How many times have you seen these movies, Larry?
I've seen the Animal Trilogy probably, because I watch them all three whenever I watch them, and I'd say I've probably seen them about 10, 15 times.
Okay, so several times. That's a fair number. That's into full analysis mode, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But not to the point of, oh, I've seen this so many times I can recite it in my head. Yeah.
That would be Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
4, not 3.
4. 4 is better than 3 in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm not a big fan of part 3.
That is a rare take.
I love them all, but I still respect.
I love them all too, but 4 is just better to me.
It blows me away that the guy that directed 3 also directed The Blob, which is one of my all-time favorite horror films, and then The Mask.
Yeah.
On that one. Anyway, La, what did you think of The Cat o' Nine Tails?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said before, I feel like for me, because I was like researching this and I was like, maybe the whole like 9 part is like the red herrings part, because I think that's how many times they had to like go back and forth, like this not it, like the different people that they had to
they have 9
like,
leads is what it is.
I think it was like 9, right? Yeah, I think it was like 9. So I thought that was pretty cool to see that within the film, because I just like stuff like that. I like stuff that they just kind of like add in to kind of add in. And
DiCaprio,
I would give this I would give this a solid 8.5, because I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Bird, and that's no disrespect to Bird, because that was still a very enjoyable film, but it was just something about this one, I guess, and it could just be what Larry was talking about, that it had more heart, that it just like I said, it just had more life in it to me, even though there's death. It just had more life. But I just wanted to say, this is the little girl. Look how cute she became in the 80s. Look at her. Gorgeous. She was in a movie called Cannibals in the Streets. It came out in 1980.
Okay.
But I gotta watch Cannibals in the Streets, because I gotta see what that's about. But I give
that's probably got 5 other titles too.
Right.
Probably.
I would bet that it has nothing to do with people eating each other. I'm just going to say I don't think it.
No,
has anything-
I feel like
cannibal
I feel like
films
it
were really
does. Look at her
popular in the
face.
80s.
Look at her face, man. Her face is terrified. Somebody eating somebody in that scene, at least.
I thought they were going to subvert the title. Janine, what do you rate Cat o' Nine Tails?
This one I liked for different reasons. So I agree with Larry in terms of Plumage having a better structure, especially for, establishing Giallo. But I was more entertained by this film. But it did have kind of a messy mystery aspect. So I think I'm also going to give this an 8.5 just because, while I was more entertained by it, it was lacking. So I think like they both needed what the other one had. So
I agree.
that kind of
on that.
equals them out.
And
for
is
me.
that where Flies comes in, Larry?
But
It
Janine
feels
just
like
took my thing, so I'm definitely Brian tonight. Definitely Brian.
I copy.
She took my
Yeah.
number.
Brian's my neighbor. So I had to copy
Great.
somebody.
Yeah.
right.
Flies is not like either of these two films.
Interesting. Well, I don't mean in
Flies
that
is-
way, just that it
No,
combines the elements.
No.
Okay.
It's like a complete departure from these other two films. And so like you don't like the protagonist in Flies. He's kind of a prick. And it's
Ooh.
like there's a huge leap of logic for the finale. So in terms of Giallo, it doesn't resonate as a good Giallo, and so it's not beloved by a lot of fans of Argento's work. But I think it is intricately important to what Profondo Rosso is. And if you look at the three of these films and you put them in a blender, then you get Profondo Rosso. I think that
Interesting. Okay.
he's so. Have you ever had a dream? Anyway, have you ever gotten somewhere and you feel like you're right on the precipice of like the aha moment,
Mhm.
and you don't really truly realize it? I think that that's the case with the Animal trilogy, and it's fully realized with Profondo Rosso. So, and again, you'll see visual elements. So, like in Cat o' Nine Tails, how it kind of cuts away to that eye, and it's like a really sharp close up of that eye whenever it's showing the killer. That's done in Profondo Rosso excellently. The weird inserts that are done in Cat o' Nine Tails is done in Profondo Rosso. But there's lots of things that if you watch these films, and again, if you watch them in progression, you'll see that they're building blocks for what he inevitably becomes. And so for anybody
Suspiria
that's
and those things will come out of these films in a lot of ways.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
That makes sense.
and so for anybody that's a fan of Argento that hasn't seen the Animal trilogy, I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not seeing these films, because you get to see the building blocks of what made the maestro, or a lot of people refer to him as the Italian Hitchcock. I don't like that designation for him personally, because I feel like it's a minimization of who he is as a filmmaker, is by saying, "Oh, he's
And
just
his
like
own
Hitchcock."
innovations. Yeah.
And
He was
so
inspired by, that's undoubted. But
I think everybody was inspired by Hitchcock. Anybody
But I think
that's
he
done
also
any
created his own specific style.
exactly, and so like you can see elements of De Palma in the works of Argento, where he inspired De Palma, and Argento has inspired countless filmmakers, and it's not even like funny how many filmmakers his cinematic verbiage has reached. And I think that for anybody that's into suspense or thrillers, you really need to just do the time and just sit in and watch these films and see. It's like an anatomy lesson, an anatomy for the films that you love, that you watch today, is by watching these films, because they're, again, the building blocks of what it is that you enjoy.
I'd like to take that
Specifically
a step further.
Suspiria.
Right. I'd like to take this a step further because this is true, and Janine and I have talked about this a lot of times, and Janine focuses one of her podcasts on this for this one of these reasons, I should say. And that is that classic films in general, as a rule, will help you see exactly why you love what you love in film across the board.
Absolutely.
And if you don't go back and appreciate them, like Janine was talking about with the movie she watched this week, it was ahead of its time. It was showing things that other films didn't do for years later. And you'll find this to be true across the board, starting even in the silent films. I would argue that Metropolis doesn't get the love that it deserves by the current generation, even though that film set the stage for basically every film we ever got after it.
Absolutely.
And yet nobody talks about the movie at all, even though it was phenomenal and still is phenomenal. Even things like Pink Floyd were like edged
the
on by
visuals and the
Metropolis.
music,
Right,
incredible.
100%. So
Cabinet of Dr. Caligari with German Expressionism is a perfect example of like that's like the kernels of what Argento's work is. It's expressionism, but it's done with this kind of 70s vibe. So yes, absolutely.
Well, I would argue in a way that Dr. Caligari and let's say The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is two sides of the same coin in the same way that you have like PS1 graphics versus PS5 graphics. It's still as beautiful, but it's not as expressive because you can't see the detail. And and this is kind of lending to what Law was saying
for
too.
the time that it came out.
Right. If you follow that along and do even modern films with things, I've heard that I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard that the Demi Moore movie just came out.
The Substance.
The Substance has a lot of that bright coloring and based on Kubrick and Argento and very like that's like super graphics of the same kind of idea. So anyway, I'm being told by our producer we are at the 2-hour mark, so we do need to kill the podcast for the evening. I'm going to give my quick rating before we move on. I did not rate this film. I'm going to give it a 9 as well. These movies have made me want to just tear right through Argento's filmography. So thank you, Ryan from Boxes for Mama, for suggesting these. Thank you, Larry, our guest, for being here.
Thank you,
And
Larry.
for breaking it down. We appreciate that. We are The Real Study. We do want to learn about film, so this is great. This is perfect. So, that said, we will be back with some Christmas movies for a couple of weeks before the end of the year. Thank you guys for being here and have a great evening.
Peace out. Follow us and Larry everywhere.